Boom Boom Shake the Room. We've covered in our 3 years together on this voyage. It has been a voyage, I think, and hopefully one that we can continue, even sometimes in choppy waters. We've covered some topics.
We have.
And I think it would be fair to say some are a bit more mainstream than others. I don't know if that's a fair... I suppose that's the nature of the topic areas. I would hazard a guess this might be one of the more eclectic.
I think so, although long-time listeners will have possibly heard hints about this episode coming up for some time now, because you have mentioned the odd thing about, well, you know, you've mentioned the odd player in the past, and you've alluded to how much you enjoy that player's hairstyle, haven't you?
Yes, calcio coiffure, if you will.
How long did it take to come up with that?
I don't know, just off the top of my head. I could have had calcio coiffure by Buffon, because I said Buffon could work either way there, couldn't it? But unfortunately, I didn't think about that beforehand, so therefore it's not quite as slick.
It didn't come out very well.
Didn't work.
It's a good suggestion, though.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I wonder if maybe my love of the coiffeur comes from obviously an inherent position of weakness, or not. I don't know. Yeah. I think also though have footballers' haircuts, because that's what we're talking about today, aren't we? Yeah. We might as well big reveal.
Yeah, because people would definitely wouldn't have read the title to the episode or anything before.
No. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. You didn't know it was going to be this, but this is what it is.
That's right. It's all about the Barnet Fair. What's on top of your head rather than what's in or between it, which I thought.
Because let's be honest, we're talking football here. We wouldn't get much out of what's in between the ears.
No, certainly not from either you or me, I would think. and I think what we've tried to do today is kind of pick out some Barnets from across yesteryear and more modern times. Which ones stand the test of time? Which ones become, I suppose, a bit like when we do cool kits. Which ones still work? Which ones you just look at and you think,
what was happening there?
How? Why? Yeah, and it's interesting because when you go back to sort of as I often do when I'm sat here alone musing all things sport.
And hairstyles.
Brackets, close brackets, open brackets. You get to that point where you look at footballers, and basically I reckon every footballer up until about mid-1960s, maybe around George Best, every footballer pretty much looked the same in terms of it was short back and sides, brill cream, plastered down, blah, blah, blah. There wasn't really... You look back at old pictures of players, or I suppose it would have been cigarette cards in the day, pre kind of Panini, and everyone looked the same. I mean, I don't know. I don't...
Is that not just because... I think you're right, but there wasn't really much going on for men's hairstyles until about the 60s, so was there? They followed a very sort of tried and tested formula up until that point. There wasn't much deviance from it, and then the 60s came along and people started growing their hair out and doing wackier things with it. So that's when you probably start to see that infiltrate football as well, especially with this here, the likes of a George Best. And you hit the 70s and everyone had long hair and a moustache.
Yeah.
Which wasn't...
And massive mutton chops as well. You know, the 70s saw...
Yeah. You never see mutton chops anymore, do you?
You don't. It's a disappointment. But I mean, some of those in the 70s were proper... I mean, they were heavier than almost the Barnet itself. I mean, they looked heavy to carry around in some instances, and almost like almost to the point where it was almost like I don't know what you call it, half a beard. The only bit you're missing out really is the goatee.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a strong look, that one. There's no subtlety with the mutton chop, is there?
I don't know if there's a balance there though between you just look like a raging psychopath, or a pop star. I think you're leaning more into this
raging psychopath if you've got the mutton chops on. Either that or like 1800s British Army general.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But
yeah.
They would have theirs thicker, wouldn't they? It would be kind of like coming
That's
out.
a good
Maybe
point,
a little bit of a moustache.
Yeah. So, and it's weird, although we've mentioned, I suppose, the icon of the 1960s from a football perspective in terms of Lord Best. I mean, he had wonderful hair. He just looked, I mean, to be honest, I know he was obviously a popular man with the ladies as well as the gentlemen. You kind of think he was probably that good looking and had that great a Barnet. It wouldn't have mattered whether he was George Best or not. To a point, I don't think he'd have struggled for male or female company, depending on his preference.
No, but it's something else to be able to maintain the look and style with a long hairstyle, I think, and a free flowing as well. You know, these days when players have long hair, it's tied back, headbands on, everything. It's like it's not going anywhere. But he
productized.
Was just out there, flowing in the wind while he was skinning half the other team.
And you know what though? He doesn't. Even though he is an icon, he's a beautiful man. We loved him, the way he played, his jeu de vivre. He doesn't make it. It's his teammate that makes it, in terms of iconery.
Iconery. It's a shame we don't talk about that.
It's the half brother of Sean. So, and a Knight of the Realm, as well. It's a classic of its shop. Well, it's not a classic. I mean, it's an abhorrent hairstyle, really, that appears. I think I saw Cesc Fabregas the other night on the telly, and I think he's borderline making this Barnet a comeback. You're looking at me now, proper quizzically, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I thought I knew which one you were talking about, but now.
Okay. Well, I'll go with I'll tell the listeners and speak to this. So Bobby Charlton, the comb over.
Cesc Fabregas. Has he
have
gone
a butcher's
bald?
right? Have you looked right? A lot of these haircuts now, where they go in with quite a heavy, low parting.
Yeah.
And then go. Yeah, with me so far.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
If you dragged your parting down a bit and gave it a full woof lift, which I know if you're out for the evening, obviously that's what you do. You're at work now. You're not at play.
Yeah, this professional. As soon as they're not, it's it's totally different.
Whoosh,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fabregas the other night on whatever match was on. He's definitely. I think some players now quite cleverly are using this come from the side, lift up and over as an opportunity to maybe thicken areas that
disguise the loss of.
Yes,
okay.
Je me disguise pas. So So there we go. If there's anything he wants to do tonight, when you listen to this, is go and have a look at Cesc Fabregas's Barnet recently.
Because
there we go.
James Warren is suspicious that he might be going bald.
I think so.
And he's bringing back.
He's bringing back the Charlton.
The most horrific hairstyle of all time, which lasted about 30 seconds into the game before it flopped back the other way and then dangled about halfway down his...
And there's a couple of great pictures, I think, like still pictures of him, playing, and this almost strange sort of fine hair, just sort of almost like my hand there, perching out into the ether, but caught for posterity. And at what point do you think, when you're doing that,
this is convincing everybody?
Yeah. It's insane, isn't it? Ralph Coates joins him in this club. Ralph Coates was also a master exponent in the 60s and early 70s. But I mean, we are not
has been
here.
lost to a previous generation, though, hasn't it? And there was numerous older people as I was growing up who would try the comb over, which you just look at it and think, well, one, if you're not playing sport, it doesn't look good and it's not convincing anybody. But two, if you are playing sport and within about 30 seconds of the game kicking off, you've run so much that it's knocked it out of position and it's flopped back the other way, you look really daft. So you probably shouldn't have it. It is, I agree with you there. You've probably started with I can't think of a worse hairstyle.
I think the thing is, because you've got, and it's weird, isn't it, now, like the way I have my hair, did you like the way I put that, obviously, to caveat?
Because this is a choice you've made.
Absolutely. Good man. That's what I tell my daughter. This is a choice. This is one, I just, low maintenance.
Exactly, yeah.
So, but I think I think you've hit upon that, because probably up until the last 10, 15 years, men didn't really do that, did they? Shave their heads. You know, you didn't, unless you wanted to be associated with some sort of skinhead, lunatic fringe type of thing.
Yeah.
See how I weaved a hair pun in there.
Yeah.
But it's always good when you got to point it out as well. I'll maybe have a little placard next time.
The best jokes are the ones
alert.
the ones that are explained are always the funniest jokes.
Vintage. But why wouldn't you? You know, you're kind of another exponent of this who didn't maybe make the cut. Was Steve McLaren, because he went through a period. Although it wasn't a different.
I think I call it
Isle of Wight. Isle of Wight, wasn't it?
The little island of hair.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's broken away from the mainland and it's floating off into the ocean. And we're watching it happen.
Barnet.
He's not realised it yet, clearly, because you wouldn't leave it there if you'd noticed it, would you? You'd be like, that looks. I think as soon as, and this is just my opinion, but I think as soon as it looks like it's on its way out and it's not coming back, just buzz the whole thing off. Get there, get rid of it, and just sort it out.
1,000,000%, sir. Style tip number one, and that is gold. That's gold to our listeners and viewers.
I promise you, if you think you're convincing people that you're not going, everyone else can see it. I promise you. In fact, everyone else probably noticed it before you noticed it. So the best thing to do is just to get rid.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, sir. I mean. And it's difficult. You've got to make that decision. But when you go, you've got to go hard.
Just get rid. You're going to end up there anyway. People are going to see you that way anyway. So just do it early.
And I think the interesting bit with that is if you don't go, if you try and fanny about, it almost exaggerates the lack of. If that makes sense, rather than just if you just turn up like this, no one kind of bats an eyelid, really.
No, but if you've got the Steve McLaren where you've just got this island tuft of hair at the front of your head and then the rest of your hair's like all the way back here. Yeah. The Sven, what was he doing?
What did Sven do with? Because he had a kind of.
Did he not have some like
his was like a long way back,
really far back, and he combed it back as well, so I'd like a Mr.
Doesn't Neil Warnock do that, or is that not his hair? Is that what we're saying there?
I don't know what's going on with Neil Warnock, but it's
that's
similar type
his
of
starts.
His
starts
there. It's back there, and he's holding onto it while it slowly disappears over the horizon. You know, it's like. It's riding off into the sunset, and Neil's just leaving it.
We've used quite a lot of geographical metaphors here, which I quite like.
Yeah. But at a certain point, you just think there's a point where you think, okay, you're hanging on to it, and it doesn't look too bad. But then there's definitely a crossover moment where you're not saving it now, and everyone can notice. And as you said, holding on to it is actually exaggerating the problem. So just buzz it off. Just buzz it off.
It must have been challenging, I would imagine, in the 70s. So when everyone, like, I think that's the difference now, is that you've got probably from mid-90s onwards. There we go. I don't know if this is right, but you might have had people with their head shaved. You might have had people with their hair spiky. You might have had people with long hair.
Yeah.
But, like, you had
lots of different styles, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the 70s, it was kind of like shit or bust, wasn't it? It was long hair.
Or skinhead.
Long hair. Yeah, there wasn't really. And so you kind of think, if you're Bobby Charlton at that point, and you're looking at all these other, great mains going around, and you see there's quite a few 70s footballers where they are going, it's a bit like losing it at the front and then growing it long. That's at the back. That's got to be another no-no as well, surely.
It is. You can't...
Mancini used to play for Arsenal. His was a bit like that, I think.
Yeah, he used to get... Yeah. By the way... When were you born, Jimbo?
74.
Oh, did you ever have a period of long hair?
Not really. No, not really.
I'm just wondering if there's an epic younger Jimbo picture we can flash up on the screen right now of you with like.
Well, certainly not one that I'll be furnishing you with for the edit. Absolutely not. Whether others who watch or listen who may know me might furnish you with that picture is another. No, had it a bit.
What's the wife's number again? I'll just for no reason I'm not going to ask her for a photograph.
Well, not after the last time. Of course, all manner of problems that did. But no. There might be the odd picture knocking about on a student union card, but it was never I mean, it would be longer on top or whatever, but it was never. I didn't know. I mean, it wouldn't be curtains or big hair or there was. I wasn't Battigol in a former life or anything like that. Sadly.
That would have been great. That.
Yeah. But yeah. So no, I just don't know why anyone does that. I just honestly, and it was. You're right, because wasn't there? This is before your time, but there was. This shows my age. There was, the Rabsy Nesbitt character.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was him. He played a character in, and I can't remember whether he'd become Rabsy Nesbitt at that point in terms of, or whether that happened over time. But Hamlet, do you remember them? The brands, they were sort of thin cigars. I think it was Hamlet, the mild cigar, I think was the advertising strapline.
I'm not too clued up on...
Gregor Fisher, that was his name. And I'm sure he played a guy, the old... what do you call it? Where you get your picture taken. What were they called? Photo booth?
Photo booth, yeah.
Yeah. So you go in. He was going in to have his picture taken, and he had like the Charlton strands going across. Oh dear. And so he's literally, you watch him preening beforehand, and then the chair keeps so something happens every time and every time, like you were saying, it catches him unawares. His hair obviously then dangles down to the point where in the end he gives up and has his mild cigar, obviously, because he just can't be bothered. But so it made the mainstream in terms of observation. But yeah, it was purveyed. I don't even know if you can call it a style. It's almost a cry for help.
Yeah, that's it's far more in the cry for help bracket than it is style bracket. I wouldn't think anyone thought it was a style, because that sort of almost implies that it was a choice to have the hair that thin in the first place,
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a panicked response to something, That's what it feels more like. It's like, I don't want to be bald yet. And I'm like, well, it's not really your choice, is it? Yeah, no. Your head's decided that for you.
Yes. No, that's Should we move away from the follically challenged? Should we move away?
let's move to some
must stress that
glorious hairstyles.
He's probably our greatest ever footballer.
He's
England
choice
shores,
of
but
bad hairdo has nothing to do with his football ability.
Absolutely, I don't just stress his brilliance on that. So going from nothing to quite a lot, I'm thinking here one of the iconic images of the 70s: George Berry, Wolves centre half. Like really big afro. Yeah, kind of get into that, I suppose, disco. It would have been 78, 79 phase. Yeah. So, just big afro. And he just looked cool. And it was for a centre half to look cool.
Yeah.
Nowadays, maybe, they look at they're a bit more coiffured and stuff. But back then,
bit of a trendsetter.
Centre halves were just sort of thugs, really, generally speaking.
We were talking about this the other day, really, about... whether or not defending has gotten harder, or is it just that defenders can't act as much thuggery anymore?
Roguishness.
Yeah.
But no, I thought...
I'm just having a look at it. Yeah, that is glorious. And not just the afro, the facial hair that goes with it as well. That is
just beautiful look. That looks beautiful. Great. And actually, that is a look.
With the Wolves shirt on as well, with the gold shirt on. Oh.
Yeah, it's a good look. It
is a good look. Yeah.
And I think, to be fair, it's a look... I'd say that's timeless, because I reckon if someone could do that now, they would still,
the shirt maybe with cool. The collar ties it very much to the 70s, but
maybe so.
But the rest of it, definitely.
No, it's a great
solid look.
And talking of sort of big afro hair, I think the other ones I was going to flag was in that area, Valderrama. A little bit later on, obviously we're moving, with breakneck speed into the 90s. But I think the one Hullet. I think there's something iconic about Hullet in that 88 Euro final, heading the ball in, and just that, obviously with his dreads and stuff, just looking super cool as he heads it in. It just iconic. And I remember I'm sure it was when he signed. You do remember this, when he came up to Newcastle to manage, and suddenly the whole of the city. Well, no, I'm exaggerating slightly. Had the rude Hullet.
The wearing the wigs,
Barnet,
weren't they?
Yeah, because he still sported that look at the time.
Yeah. Valderrama though had quite a. I mean, that was a player you wouldn't lose in a crowd.
No. It was like the player, wasn't it? Explosive.
It had,
like eccentric
hairstyle with eccentric playing style. Yeah. Oh yeah, you definitely wouldn't lose Valderrama in a crowd. Not a chance. That was an epic hairstyle.
It was.
Sort of was kind of known for that, really. He became famous almost because of the hairstyle over maybe.
Yeah, and I suppose he was
a
part
good player,
of
but
a good Colombia team. They had a period, didn't they, where they were.
But people knew
good.
him, I think, more.
For sure.
Because of his hair than necessarily because he was the greatest player alive or anything.
Well, no, true, but I think he might have been South American Footballer of the Year once or twice.
Oh, I'm not knocking how good he was. It's just he came with a look that also.
I was hearing that you were saying style over substance. That's what I was hearing.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. I was thinking more of the style helped the substance to become more famous.
Look at that. How you weave that in. But I think all three of them, would stand up today. Look pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't think any of those. It's not like they're rocking the Charlton, is it? So
no. And Trent Alexander's kind of started to move towards that, which I think it's a good look for, again, a flamboyant player with a flamboyant Barnet can only be a good thing in the modern game.
Yeah. He's got it's sort of like a mini version of those, doesn't he?
Yeah.
It's not quite as eccentric as the other ones.
But
you don't see players rocking the full afro anymore, though, do you?
No, and I don't know why, because it just looks really cool. I'm trying to think if anyone. I'm sure someone has done it recently.
The one I thought about who's closest to it, but I'm not sure if it's an afro or not, because I don't know what the technical term or the technical reason behind it. But Fellaini had quite a.
He did actually, yes.
When he first started, came on, his was
and quite impactful on a guy that was 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah. Yeah, he looked dead weird when he shaved his head, didn't he? And it's like
yes. Yeah,
I didn't realize there wasn't actually much head above his forehead, but like where his hairline was, you think there would have been a bit more head up there.
But we want the George Berry back. We want that I think that we want to see a bit of that in the modern game.
Oh yeah, it's a class. As you said, it's timeless. It's a timeless look.
Timeless Barnet. There are, however, Barnets that haven't aged well.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking now, as we kind of ease our way into the 1980s. Take yourself there. It's the Liverpool team of the early 80s, all conquering Europe domestically and stuff. One drawback for that team.
The Barnet.
And the use of I suppose, would it be called a bubble perm? Is that what it's called? Just a perm?
But I mean, you've almost got to forgive nearly everyone from the 80s for that, because...
Do you think? Did Keegan start it, and then
it was everywhere, wasn't it? You couldn't escape the perm.
But I mean, that whole Liverpool team,
virtually
all of them, and you know, not everybody, but one of the other enduring images, Kenny Dalglish, I don't think succumbed to it. I don't recall.
I was going to say, I don't think I can picture Kenny Dalglish with a perm.
Ray Clements, I don't think.
Souness was rocking a perm though, wasn't he?
Yeah. But again, he still sort of managed to get away with it, I think. And even if he didn't, you weren't going to argue with him, were you?
Yeah.
But no, it was pretty much. I don't think Hansen did. I don't think Hansen would have sported it, but most of the key players in that side, and it's a look. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know. Do you ever see? I mean, you never see a bloke with a.
You don't see perms, no.
No, and
you don't see perms. Period anymore. Never mind on a bloke.
Yeah.
You just don't get that. There was a lot of things that happened. You know, every decade's got its like style and
it has,
music. That's or not, yeah. And it's, you know, sometimes they bleed beyond the decade, and sometimes they make a reoccurrence or a resurgence years later. You know, not to say that they're timeless, but just occasionally some trends come back. The 80s was full of things that stayed only in the 80s and have never been seen again for like how dodgy things looked then. The music was great in the 80s, but the fashion was atrocious.
Well, some of it was. I mean, you got like some of your football casual gear still looks pretty cool now.
Right. Okay. Is that because it's retro now?
Yeah. Well, I think it did look quite. But I know what you mean. I do know what you mean. There's certain fashions that you look at it and you think, would that ever come back in if anyone tried it? I don't know.
There's a lot I saw from that decade where there was just a lot of bad decisions being made.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of them. Now this one's going to divide opinion. I think we've got two. I'm going to chuck you two Geordie legends in Chris Waddle and Paul Gascoigne.
Oh, I'm with you on this one, even though this has started to make a slight resurgence as well, hasn't it? I've seen a few people rocking this.
Yeah, and we're talking, I presume, initially about the Waddler and the mullet, really, the flat.
The mullet, yeah.
Now he really, I mean, he didn't. You had a few there. I'm thinking from other sports, like Ian Botham had normalish hair on top and then a little bit of a perm at the back, almost like a little bit longer at the back.
Ice hockey's full of...
Yeah, that's mullet. A good shout.
What was full of mullets? Yeah. There's still a few of them knocking around, but
Waddler took even that to. I mean, he had at one point like a flat top. If you remember the old flat top, like the Carl Lewis flat top type of thing from the '84 Olympics, had a flat top, and then it almost was like two heads. It sort of the brr, 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 stopped, and then suddenly this mane, almost Haaland-esque. Just sort of.
Did he have like a little
down.
Bit of a fringe, like
it was like properly
sort
of. It was properly, like they used to be able to get these like the flat top where it went up like a square and across.
Yeah. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air look.
So, but it was kind of like he had it a bit like that. So it was properly sort of and then shaved, and then basically just this mane at the back, which I don't think in any era. Are you a fan?
The mullet, no. The mullet is definitely one of those ones where you are questioning why anyone thought that ever looked good. It's a very poor hairstyle. It also and it doesn't know what it wants to be. Is it long hair? Is it short hair? Apparently, it's both, and it just doesn't look good. Plus, it doesn't help fans of the mullet. It does not help that hairstyle seems to have been commandeered by your sort of Hick style American,
Yes.
You're
right though. It is making a bit of a comeback. I see certainly a few cricketers, a few rugby players.
There was a hockey player last year that I saw was pulling it just
but they're really like abrasive, so they have it like shaved at the side, where almost like no hair there, and then just this raggedy kind of mess.
A kid in the street the other day was rocking a mullet, and I just thought,
you got the shit. You just went out.
Well, I was going to call social services, to be honest, to report the parents. I thought that's harsh.
Yeah,
making your kid walk around like that.
It is very harsh. But no, it's who knows? We could be not missing that trend. The only thing
maybe we're so off trend, and the mullet is the look right now.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about the Waddler mullet, and coming back to a heartbreaking incident where
you lost your mullet.
I never had a mullet to lose. FA Cup World Cup semi-final, England West Germany 1990. He'd had the mullet for however long he'd had it. Turns up to the semi-final, the whole back bit's been so it actually looks like he's got a normal haircut. So after all these years, he's cut it off. What happens? Penalty shootout, hits it miles over the bar. What's my logic? Maybe his ballast was all off because he didn't have that weight at the back of his Barnet.
He was top heavy, nearly fell forwards.
So where was he leaning back? Had he been, I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe the source of all his footballing ability was held in the mullet.
He went on obviously and played very well for Marseille with a shorter haircut, but who knows? Could that have changed the course of English football history? Just that one trim.
Yeah, that ill-advised haircut right before the semi-final.
And talking of ill-advised haircuts before semi-final, there was Gazza's French crop. That was it was just like cut short but then brushed forward. I think it was the start of the kind of that era of it was around the period of kind of acid house and stuff like that. And I'm not putting him at the sort of heart of that. But I quite liked a bit of the French crop, I think it was called. Bit brushed forward on the top, bit longer on the top, and then shaved around the sides. Think semi-final.
Haircut. You're thinking the Chava haircut.
Is that what it is? Is it almost
is
what?
Is that the one that Phil Foden rocked at the last?
Yeah, it might have been similar. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is what every single Chava in my school was rocking this. Was rocking this haircut. In some cases,
the crowd with
the bleach blonde as well.
Oh, that's a great shout. That I didn't go for the bleach blonde, but I was tempted.
That is 1,000% a Chava haircut. That.
Oh, you see, I thought I looked all right with mine.
You probably look like a Chava.
All right.
Do you have any facial hair to go with it?
No, I did not.
Then you definitely would look like a Chava. If you had a facial hair, you might have got away with it, but
okay. Well,
you might look like the guy from the Stone Roses. Maybe is that what you were going for? He had that thing, didn't he?
Do you know what? No, and I think I'll tell you where that did jumping forward a bit. There was a guy who played for Nottingham Forest only for a fairly brief period of time. Got a few goals in a European Cup run called Paul McGregor, and he was very much sort of a spitting image of the guy who's the lead singer out of Supergrass. Forgotten his name.
I know him.
Gaz Coombs.
Right. Yes.
And he very much had that kind of that kind of look going on.
He had a quite long haircut style at first, so didn't he?
I think so. It was quite coiffed. I mean, we get into the 90s though, and there are kind of two for me. There's one player that kind of seemed to sport every haircut under the sun.
Who really we could have done an entire episode of just this one player. Yeah,
you could have. And then what did they call it? What's you'll know this with your Italian, Il Divino something or other.
Oh, the divine ponytail.
Yes, the divine. Was it? Well, I don't know what ponytail is.
I can't remember, but that's Baggio, isn't it?
It is Baggio, and again one of my favourite players in that era. Wore a lovely Diodora boot as well, which I must recommend, which I enjoyed thoroughly. But for such a wonderful player, that was such a dreadful hairstyle.
It was, because that was almost like the mullet of ponytail styles, wasn't it? It was quite short on top. It looked short on top anyway, and then he had the long hair at the back,
which was awful.
Only matched, I think.
I'm not sure if any players. I mean, Petit, did he get away with a ponytail? I don't know. Maybe it's just sometimes the style.
I think if you're from the like over beyond the English Channel and you're in like continental Europe, or mainland Europe, I guess, you can get away with like a ponytail more than like a Brit can.
I just don't know if it works, mate. I don't know. Dave Seaman.
I will. The only thing I would say with him, it's not a good look. It just isn't a good look. But at least all his hair was long. He didn't He didn't like cut it short and then have the ponytail. Okay. It's like
there's a consistency to the horror.
He ponytailed it because it was long, type of thing. You know that it felt like that anyway. Yeah. Yes.
You're mulling this over, aren't you?
Well,
mulling the mullet.
I would say his was better than. And we're splitting hairs here.
Yeah, so you did that.
But
very good.
His was
benefits.
His was better than Baggio's. Baggio's was if Baggio hadn't been one of the greatest players around, that hairstyle would just never have been seen. It was so bad. It was so bad.
Well, and I guess the other one we should focus on in that period, Beckham. I mean, Christ. I mean,
had every single hairstyle, hasn't he?
I mean, there isn't one. I don't think that he's not out the locker. I mean, obviously,
I'll give him credit. He's looked good in pretty much all of them, despite how bad they are. He's a good enough looking bloke that he can sort of pull off pretty much any of them.
Yeah, I think the only one I recall that felt like was the braids. I thought that just that wasn't a strong look. No. Even on someone like him, it wasn't. He couldn't even really pull that one off, could he? No. I thought most of the other stuff was pretty cool. The original one, and then obviously having the crew cut was quite cool. I think after that,
the James Ely.
Yeah, I mean that's a strong look, isn't it? Strong look, especially if you want lucrative, brand endorsements and marketing contracts. What other ones were there? There was the Mohawk. That was quite cool. And that was that around a World Cup where then every kid of a certain age, a bit like coming back to your other point of Chava haircuts, went and got a Mohawk type.
They've all got Mohawks. Didn't you get told to cut that off?
I think Ferguson.
So he had it. Was like it was a Mohawk. Then it was like a strip.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the hair grew in.
Yeah, I think so. He still managed to make that look cool, though. I think.
He did. Yeah, he's had a few in there. He's managed to pull most of them off. As you say, the only misstep was the braids, I think.
And I think then latterly, did Abel Xavier and Jibril Cisse go for a similar sort of? They've the two of them have had some
Abel
pretty
Xavier's
crazy Barnets as well.
Yeah, Abel Xavier dyed everything, didn't he? Had like top to bottom was like bleach
White.
blonde.
Yeah, blonde was it? Yeah,
that was a cool look. That he pulled
Didn't
that off.
Cisse do
definitely.
red for a while as well?
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I'm sure he did red, and like he had. I remember seeing him in like a red. He was like not in kit, in clothes, full red from top to bottom. Literally only a look that I don't know an overseas footballer could carry off ever. Which
if you I think Abel Xavier's look was a strong look, and he definitely pulled it off. It worked, didn't it? I think it would look weird if he didn't have the bleach blonde. It was such like an iconic look for him. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Looked a bit weird. The only other one I was thinking of coming sort of more modern era, although I suppose still only over 20 years, was the Ronaldo triangle for the World Cup final. That
when
was,
he shaved everything off except the little bit at the front.
Yeah, that was insane. Really, you're going out on the biggest stage in the world ever, and you do that. But I mean, you go and win it and score 2 goals, and it's the greatest comeback since Lazarus.
What did he do? It always looked to me like he was shaving his head, and then the battery ran out just as he got to the front.
What with a perfect try?
Yeah, and it was about like 5 minutes before they were due out on the pitch. He's like, "What am I going to do?" And they're just like, "Just leave it, man. You'll be fine." And that's what happened.
He just went for it.
There was actually a kid at my school got that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looked as bad as you think it would look.
I mean, what are you thinking of to go and get that? Really, what are you thinking of?
Well, Ronaldo's got it. So I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make it excusable.
Yeah. The other one I was going to flag actually in terms of modern era, and which kind of I think flies in direct proportion to his ability and what he's doing on the pitch, is Erling Haaland, which either up or down it's an atrocious amalgam of haircut.
I don't think he's figured out what hairstyle suits him yet, because that long one, it's not big enough to be long, you know. It's quite like thin and sort of squished down at the back, so when it's like out, it's not like big enough, but then when he ties it all up, it doesn't look very good either. So he's got to figure out.
I wonder if that's God's way of just evening things up. So
here's your football talent, but you're not going to have
a rubbish haircut. I think which strikes me as a very equitable way of going about things. I think he's obviously done well on the football talent front. So
he's not bad, is he? He's not bad.
No, and I think also in that team, what are you a fan of, the Jack Grealish step and wedge, that kind of carry on?
I think Jack Grealish pulls it off better than many men would. But it's not a good look.
Right.
I don't think it's a good haircut. I think, he's quite a handsome lad, and he's he's a footballer, and he's got everything else going for him. So I think he pulls it off better than most would.
But anyone going to try it on Saturday,
if you saw one of your mates turn up like on Sunday League with that haircut, you'd crucify him, wouldn't you?
Hammer them.
Absolutely crucify him with that. It's something out of like the early 90s Take That Boyzone sort of haircut, isn't it? Really?
Which actually I suppose Grealish probably ticks the box on that particular one. That's quite a few haircuts we've gone through though, mate.
It's a few. Yeah. You know who's had a couple of dodgy ones actually over the years?
Yeah, go on.
The 2 best players in the world. Ronaldo and Messi have both had a couple of times when they've had not great haircuts. They've never done anything really bad. It's just they've never been.
Messi doesn't really do anything, does he? In terms
of nowadays they've both solved the issue, but but when they were both very young and getting into it, Ronaldo had some weird, like very over gelled. Straightened down, it looked really bad, and Messi just went with like the I don't care, growing it out bad long haircut, So they've figured it out now. But when they first got started, they both rocked a couple of dodgy haircuts.
They've maybe got a few people around them that help them with those sorts of things.
You've got a bit of money, lads. You can go to the hairdresser. You can get it sorted. You don't have to do it yourself.
I reckon the hairdresser comes to them. In fairness.
Yeah.
Quite possibly. Well, there we go. Have we missed anyone out on Barnet Fair? Let us know, because
I would love to know.
We must have missed some out there. We must have missed.
I would really love, like, if someone has some obscure footballers of the past who've got some like crazy haircuts. I would love to see that.
Send your pictures or post them on the. Can you post them on the comments? Pictures? Can you post pictures on the comments? I don't know.
No, but
no. You
can on Twitter though. You can put on Twitter.
Yeah, or Twitter. So Barndoors, Banjos. What are we? At
Barndoors, Banjos. It's only been 3 years.
Barndoors, Banjo. I'll just keep saying it. Everyone knows where we are, man. Everyone knows where we are. So
it's a bit like northern that. Everyone knows where we are, man.
Yeah, leak.
No,
I won't go down the accent route. I don't think that's something we want on publication, is it?
Depends how good you do it.
We'll leave it for today. We hope you've enjoyed it, as always. Let us know your favourite Barnets. And obviously, we look... I don't think we can make a series out of Barnetry, but a nice little one-off, if you will.
Yeah, a little one-off. Look at some good and bad hairstyles of the past. And there were some good ones in there, mind.
Yes, I think so. And
who would win it, though? Pick your favourite out of everyone we discussed today.
Oh, good question.
I mean, Beckham's got about 10 entries, but
pick.
What's your favourite?
Okay, I will go with... I like the George Berry.
See, I was going to go George Berry, but just to even it out a little bit, I'm going to go with Abel Xavier.
Okay.
It was a strong look for him. Whatever like on anybody else that would look ridiculous. On him, it worked.
It just did. No, you're right, actually, and it did. It's funny, isn't it? It did work.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. Let's do it again sometime.
Well, that was fun.
Did I not bring energy to that?
That didn't seem sincere. I'm going to put it out there.
Well, I look forward to catching up with everybody soon, and thank you for listening and watching.
Yeah, cheers.
Bye.
See you in the next round.